Let me begin by thanking Seanad for this generous invitation. This is the rarest of opportunities that a person from another country might get to enjoy. And I want to thank Senator Daly in particular, as he described his work with legislative bodies across the country so that we may well create the next generation of the Friends of Ireland. A reminder on this occasion about what the Friends of Ireland was brought about for. We agreed to stop the gun running in America in places like the cities we all come from, Boston, Springfield, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and the UK decided to get serious about finding a solution to the north. When on the 2nd of February, 1880, the great Irish nationalist parliamentarian Charles Stewart Parnell took to his feet in the United States Capitol to address the joint houses of Congress, he became one of the first non-American political leaders to be granted this rare honor. This moment reflected the special ties that bound Ireland and America at a time when the Irish-born population of the United States was at its peak. In thanking the people of America for their unyielding support for Ireland, Parnell expressed pride in his American heritage acquired through his mother. I stand here today as chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, imbued with a deep sense of pride in my heritage, drawn from the forebearers who crossed the Atlantic to make new lives for themselves on our continent. Not to mention, incidentally, the first chairman of the Ways and Means Committee was named Fitzsimmons, and he was an Irish immigrant. In decades following Ireland's Great Hunger, millions of Irish immigrants transformed America, lifting shovels, bringing down hammers, and building canals. They helped to make America a world power. And in return, Irish immigrants and their descendants helped to take Ireland on its way to independence. Parnell was not the only Irish public figure to make his way to America in the decades prior to the emergence of the Irish Free State, whose centenary we mark this year with all of you. Douglas Hyde, who went on to become the first president of Ireland, visited my home place of Springfield, where he described one of the Irish-speaking hosts as the finest Irishman he had encountered anywhere. On the first page of Fenton O'Toole's new book, page 1, he mentions the people of Springfield. And yesterday, we relived that opportunity on the Blasket Islands, where there is one person still living in my constituency who lived on the Blaskets. Our visitors today from the congressional delegation: Brady, Kine, Kelly, Doyle, Joyce, Scanlon, Kildee, and Buchanan, only removed by 1 or 2 generations from this island. My colleagues on the congressional delegation and I are delighted to be back in Ireland to reconnect with friends and relatives after a difficult couple of years with the pandemic disrupting all of our lives. It was a joy to have been with the Taoiseach in Washington, but again yesterday for more than an hour-long meeting to discuss the challenges that we now confront again. A bold moment for such a small country to receive an audience on St. Patrick's Day with a president, members of Congress, and be center stage on the American stage and center. I'm joined this week by these members of Congress who have a long-standing commitment to deepening our ties between the two countries and protecting the precious peace that our country helped to supply the background for now 24 years ago. I know something about that agreement. I helped urge Bill Clinton and George Mitchell to take it up, and it has been successful beyond anybody's imagination. Just as Parnell in 1880 paid tribute to Americans for their support for Ireland, let me acknowledge Ireland's unwavering stance and congratulations to all of you for your position as it relates to Ukraine. You've pushed back hard on Russia's brutal aggression, supported unprecedented stiff sanctions and extensive EU military assistance to Ukraine. I know that you've also given shelter to almost 30,000 Ukrainians who have fled their war-torn homeland. Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine has served to underline and reinforce the democratic values that unite Americans and Europeans who now stand together in determined opposition to the tyranny unleashed by Putin's Russia. In Brussels, we heard the same message, and that was that the Europeans intend to stand with America and our allies across the globe to push back on this challenge. But as we convene here today in this marvelous setting, I recognize that this worrying and uncertain time also occurs in Northern Ireland. We are here to listen to the views of political leaders in Dublin and tomorrow on to Belfast for 2 very serious days with all the political parties. We want to meet with people so that we can understand what the fallout from the UK's decision to leave the EU has affected all of them and us. This message we will bring is firm, clear, and unambiguous. The number one priority for the United States on this island is to ensure that the hard-won peace in Northern Ireland is preserved and reinforced. It is apparent to us during our visit to Brussels that they remain equally strong in their commitment to Northern Ireland and your neighbors in Europe as well. They have time and again demonstrated their support for the Good Friday Agreement, as have all the parties in the Irish Republic unreservedly. I am really pleased that you continue your engagement. While I of course respect the UK's decision to leave the European Union, it has inevitably posed unprecedented challenges for the island of Ireland. A grim reminder is that 30 years ago, and I hope that we can all focus this because I think we're losing institutional memory in the UK. 30 years ago, there were 30,000 British soldiers in an area the size of our state of Connecticut. Anybody who traveled there, you knew clearly what the watchtowers meant and what the RUC meant in that small geographic area. The longest standing political dispute in the history of the Western world was proceeding unabated in the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. Through good work and goodwill, we helped to find a path forward. We have found solutions time and again to short-term disruptions. Now it is the protocol. A solution through an extended set of negotiations on Northern Ireland and Ireland can be enhanced. Any incautious move to undo the protocol, which was agreed to by all sides to address these issues, would put at risk this durable agreement that we helped to create, and now we all should be celebrating. On the eve of the 25th year of the Good Friday Agreement, everything in our power to protect the unrelenting gains should be acknowledged. Through the context of the moment, the way forward is the same as it has been. We need courage, dialogue, and leadership from all sides to keep Northern Ireland secure and prosperous. The Good Friday Agreement worked because it had something in it for all sides. It happened because those involved acted together in good faith, and the hardest men and women had to make that agreement. Everybody gave up something to agree to this place. The Republic of Ireland relinquished Articles 2 and 3 of its Constitution, which laid claim, at the request of De Valera, to the north. But the UK gave up the border. The world was a witness to these proceedings. Unilateral actions, intransigence, and ultimatums are not solutions, nor have they ever been. America will continue to nudge and nurture this agreement. After all, the Good Friday Agreement is America's too. I have no doubt that my ancestors, who instilled a deep and emotional connection to this country, would be proud of the Ireland we have seen this week. Strong, prosperous, and confident Ireland has firmly found its place on the world stage and used its voice, as always, to stand up for the less fortunate. While Ireland has been remade in recent decades as an open, tolerant, and prosperous country, our immigrant ancestors would be heartened to see that its traditional character and distinctive identity remain intact. The welcome you have extended to these Ukrainians confirms through solidarity and compassion that the people of Ireland have not forgotten our own history. Leaving one's homeland is a deeply painful experience. For those who depart for the communities that were left behind, Irish America carries the memory of that experience. But the past does not define us. What defines us is how we and so many other immigrant communities have helped to build America and make it the great country it is today. Representative democracy does not have to mean uniformity. From the skyscrapers of Manhattan to the mines of Montana, our nation's infrastructure bears an indelible Irish imprint. That Irish influence is felt in so many parts of American life, in politics, in business, in education, in the media, and of course law enforcement, to name a few of the areas in which Irish Americans have excelled. The heritage of this congressional delegation, as I noted earlier, along with President Biden, epitomizes the Irish contribution to government in America. They made that journey across the Atlantic. Families like the Finnegans, and the Blewitts, the Kennedys, the Garveys, the Wards, the Harts, and the Neals. They could scarcely have imagined what an impact their descendants would make in their adopted land. In the years leading up to 1922, many of my predecessors in Congress did their utmost to advance the Irish question at the highest levels of the United States government. In the centuries since your independence, this tradition of Irish American concern for Ireland has been maintained. Successive generations of Irish American political leaders have stood by Ireland in good times and troubled ones as well. Irish Americans were instrumental in encouraging the U.S. involvement in Northern Ireland throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it was that great man, John Hume, who visited America to say that it was worth it, that helped to shape that success story. Yeah. It created a very important condition for peace in Northern Ireland, the American dimension. That push led to the founding of the Friends of Ireland 40 years ago. The Friends and I have the honor of co-chairing this unique bipartisan support for the Good Friday Agreement that has flowed from it. A reminder, half our delegation are Republicans, the other half are Democrats. At a time when it's hard for us to find agreement on a lot of issues, we have found agreement, as always, on Ireland. We have introduced a credible, independent voice that helped pave the way for the Good Friday Agreement. I am really proud that much of my career in foreign policy has been based upon my interest in this achievement. One of my first speeches in the House of Representatives a few years ago condemned the use of rubber bullets in the north of Ireland. My own heritage compelled me to do what I could, but so many of the people that I represent in Springfield would tell the same story. It was that story as well for all of our Congress members who were trying to conjure up a path to peace that was bolstered by American communities all over the country who kept the fortunes of Ireland close to their heart, but at the top of their minds. Our visit here is part of that tradition. As before, representatives from both sides of the aisle are putting their differences aside to help bridge the gaps between the communities on this island. We are here to listen, to speak, and again to bring the message to Washington and from Washington that peace needs undying commitment and dedication to achieving positive outcomes. We know how important the United States has been in helping the parties in the North carve out a path to a better future for all. We are committed to staying the course and keeping the North on that path of peace and prosperity. I look forward in the next 2 days to visiting once again the old border. I've been involved for so long that I can remember the dark days. I recall crossing that border either in 1989 or 1990 with Speaker of the House Tom Foley from Donegal to Derry. Our bus was stopped by a British Army patrol, and we were obliged to wait on the vehicle while it was subjected to a thorough search with armed soldiers in night vision and heavy armament. I have far fonder memories of crossing that border with Speaker Pelosi in 2019. When we moved across that border from Derry to Donegal and back again to make the moment, our phones pinged. That tells the story. The contrast then and now could not have been starker. No one wants to return to when a border control across the island divided its people. That is why the EU-UK protocol is so important and why its implementation needs to be the subject of a negotiated agreement and not unilateral action. The principle of consent does not mean veto. I have been excited to learn more this week about the Irish government's Shared Island Initiative, which we discussed this morning as well with President Higgins. It reflects an understanding that all communities and traditions on the island will have a chance to work together to build a consensus for a shared future. That is the way forward. We cannot allow the fallout from Brexit to divert Ireland from the path of peace and progress, and we must not allow the clock to be turned back. The United States will continue to be a reliable friend it always has been to Ireland, and to understand the strong stake in the rich legacy of the Good Friday Agreement that you, along with us, helped to secure. We intend not to let it go awry. We have work to do in protecting and reinforcing the peace in Northern Ireland that has existed for these 25 years. As always, we need to work together, the U.S., Ireland, Britain, European Union, and the people of Northern Ireland and their political representatives to find a space for where the planter and the Gael might live in harmony. Instead of two communities, one community with two traditions. The legacy issue as well should not be allowed to get in the way of what those families need to know about what really happened. That is a very important consideration. And so that everybody knows when they come to Washington, we meet with all the families regardless of their tradition, because there was enough pain inflicted by both sides on the other that those families need closure in their lives. Whether it was the Guilford case or Bloody Sunday, when I talked to those families on the day that Prime Minister David Cameron apologized on the floor of Commons, whether it was Birmingham or whether it was the Raymond McCord case who has been to my office that asked that America intervene on behalf of his son, we need to know, along with the Finucane family as well. I want to thank Mark Daly for that invitation that he extended, but as he lobbies, he always brings these issues up as well. Now, let me personally conclude with something that I thought a lot about. But for the rhythms of history, I might be sitting where you are today. Yes, Mark, representing County Kerry, Ireland. And knowing all of you and what happened in America, a lot of you would be sitting in Congress, I know that. But together, we celebrate an ancient culture whose devotion to learning, always acknowledging that words matter, always a special regard for the printed and spoken word that helped to lift the aspirations of millions of descendants of this island. The Gael might have moved west, but they took with them the values that a resolved people like yourself taught in earlier generations. Anniversaries, I know, are very important in Irish history, more so as we commemorate the centenary of the Irish Republic. We also applaud a very small country that has given so much to world civilization. Any anthology offers, of course, competing narratives, but through conquest, subjugation, occupation, famine, gatamor, risings, revolutions, and civil war, always an unbreakable spirit marked by optimism. For such a country to have produced James Joyce in the 100th anniversary of Ulysses, the great writers, the monks who saved the ancient scrolls through the Dark Ages, and contributions to art, music, literature, and civilization, and theater as well, it's remarkable. And in the diaspora, never to forget the candle in the window of the president's residence that we witnessed again this morning that always welcomes back the immigrants. Yeats simply described it as the indomitable Irishies. And I would remind all, as Yeats did, that though the leaves are many, the root is one. Thank you from the United States of America.